Alright, hey everyone. This video is going to be a little bit on the longer side because I want to recap the two play-in games that occurred today for the Eastern Conference. The two were, as you can see here, the Hornets versus the Pacers and the Celtics versus the Wizards. So I'm going to start off with the Hornets versus Pacers game. So I'm going to start off by saying that I wasn't really able to actually watch it that much because I was working today. But I was happy to see that I was tuning in here and there, but I was happy to see Bulls legend Doug McDermott just have an extremely hot hand, pretty much set the pace for the Pacers to have that insane first quarter, which they ended up carrying throughout the entire game. And what we've seen based on what we saw tonight of the Pacers against the Hornets, the Pacers just look like they're a very, very good team, as a cohesive unit. Today in the game, they worked as a cohesive unit. They didn't have one star just carrying the load offensively. We did have Sabonis, he was a good spark on defense. He was a good spark in starting plays by grabbing 21 rebounds. But besides that, there wasn't really one player carrying all the load. It is everyone is, creating open spaces for each other, creating good screens, all that stuff. The Pacers are a really good team, right? It's similar to the 2004 Pistons. They didn't really have one standout star player. Rather, they just did great because they were one big team. So I think that's what the Pacers are like. And I'll talk more about what that means with the play-in game versus the Wizards to determine the 8 seed. I'll talk about that later. Yeah, I'll just go on to the later. So on to Boston versus Washington. I watched this entire game and it was a fun game to watch, to be honest. So I'm gonna start off by openly admitting I was wrong about Boston and I was wrong about the Hornets. I was 0 for 2 on my East picks for the play-in round. And honestly, I originally said that Boston was gonna get embarrassed because they've been injured. They've been battling injuries all season. I thought their last regular season game, I think they lost. I forgot now, but they didn't really have a great end to the regular season, and I thought that was going to translate into the actual play-in game. And I could not be any more wrong, and I'm glad to admit that. All right, I'm not gonna sit here and defend myself or anything. I was just wrong. And yeah, so I'll just go what my thoughts throughout the game. So in the first half, the game was mostly equal. One thing we started to notice was Ish Smith was playing far better than Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook in that first half. And I originally wrote that down thinking oh, that's just something maybe Russ and Beal need to get warmed up. Beal's been dealing with that hamstring issue. But that actually ended up staying the story for the entire game. Ish Smith was Washington's MVP for today's game. I'll talk more about Russell Westbrook's and Beal's performance in a bit. Yeah, and then so on to the second half. The second half is where the game really started to get really just started to get out of hand for the Wizards. The Celtics pretty much came into the second half as a completely different team. They had insane defensive possessions. Pretty much just brought Washington's offense to a standstill. Russ was playing a little well in the first half. He's Russ and Beal were both playing pretty well in the first half. But in that second half, especially in at the beginning of the third quarter, they were just stopped. The brakes were just completely slammed on the Wizards' offense. And the Celtics used this to their advantage. They trapped the Wizards in with strong defensive possession. Then they used this to convert them into convert fast break opportunities. You'd have some insane stop made by the Celtics, and then you'd just pretty much you'd see Jason Tatum just running down the court, and then making good three and stuff like that. Same with Kemba Walker. Kemba was not playing well at all in that first half, missing taking pretty bad layups, missing shots and left and right and everything. But in that second half, he really stepped up his play. He took good looks. He just didn't shoot for the sake of shooting. He took good looks. Finding open looks for himself, or he just made good passes and set up good plays as well. I think 6 minutes left in the third quarter, there's that one play where he passed the ball to Marcus Smart, and then Marcus Smart found a wide open Aaron Nesmith who just drained a three. Right, stuff like that. You could see Kemba just improved on from the first half to the second half. Kemba just became a facilitator for the team. And then Jason Tatum is Jason Tatum. he really stepped up with Jaylen Brown out. I don't think Jaylen Brown's coming back for the rest of the season, unfortunately, but Jason Tatum has shown that he can perform even with the absence of Jaylen Brown. Again, like he stepped up really well offensively. He scored 23 points in the third quarter. Him and Kemba, again, like really gave the Celtics momentum that they needed, because it is a 2-point, there's a 2-point gap between the Celtics and the Wizards at halftime. And then, they just pretty much, Kemba and Tatum just pretty much took over in the third quarter and gave the Celtics a 10-point lead at the end of the third. And like, again, more on like Tatum's offensive prowess in that game. He pretty much just hit he had like I don't really know how to describe it, but like he was pretty heavily contested or heavily guarded by some Wizards player, and Tatum just like chucked up a three and then it just went in. Like he was on fire in the third and fourth quarter. And for the Wizards in the third quarter, they just looked horrendous. I mean, like there's no way for me to sugarcoat it. They just looked terrible out there. They looked lost. Like, first of all, let's go on defense, right? There was absolutely no defense whatsoever. Tristan Thompson was easily finding himself wide open in the paint, right? Like, you'd have two players on, like, someone. I think there was at one play in the third quarter, the Celtics sent two men into the paint. And then, like, the Wizards double-teamed them for some reason, and Tristan Thompson was wide open, got a bucket. And, like, the Wizards were just not aggressive in getting boards at all. And, like, rebounds are one of the most important parts of the basketball. Like, the Celtics were just easily grabbing offensive boards over and over and over again, getting a bunch of points off those offensive boards. Like, I'm going to talk more about this later when I'm talking about the Wizards versus Pacers prediction, because I have to edit my predictions left and right now because both of mine were wrong. But the Celtics were just embarrassing the Wizards on defense. Like, just there was a stark day and night difference between the Celtics defense and the Wizards defense. Like, Celtics, when they were on defense, they would pretty much just stop the Wizards offense in its tracks. Wizards defense was pretty much like turnstiles, right? Like, there was no pressure at all from anyone on the Wizards on defense. Again, and like Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook were taking terrible looks this entire quarter. I'm mainly talking about the third quarter, but this also ended up applying to the fourth quarter as well. Like, Bradley Beal is clearly still shaken up from the hamstring, so I'm not like gonna knock him on his performance at all. Because it makes sense why. Like, he was doing like these stretches every chance he got, every stoppage in play and everything, right? Like, stretching his legs out, trying to make sure his hamstring was in good shape for the game. And it clearly wasn't. Like, it is clearly nagging him the entire game. So I hope that it gets better by the Pacers game. And then again, I'll talk about this later. Same with the Russ. Like, part of this is, of course, because the Celtics just completely stepped up their defense. Russ was taking horrendous shots. Like, I'll talk. He pretty much decided that he had to play hero time for some reason, like hero ball. But there's no reason for him to actually play hero ball. Like, he was just he was pretty much he just took the game into his own hands. He didn't try to create plays or anything. Like, I didn't really see much passing or much assisting from Russell Westbrook all game. And I was watching like pretty intensely all game. Like, I didn't really have anything else to do after I got back. And and then like Davis Bertans, I was going on the Twitter timeline because, again, I haven't watched too much of the Wizards this year. I watched like Russ's 182nd triple-double game. I watched stuff like that, right? But I wasn't watching like every single Wizards game this season. And so I'm seeing like Wizards fans talk about how Davis Bertans is apparently a 3-point specialist. And watching today's game, you would not believe that at all. He was hitting brick after brick after brick. If he ever got the ball and he was like standing in the three, you pretty much could leave him open because he was just bricking every single shot, like outside rim, terrible. And once again, like, just want to talk about Ish Smith. Like, he was far and wide the team's MVP tonight. Like, Ish Smith was literally carrying the Wizards. Like, he was mainly the reason why the Wizards even had a chance for half the game. Like, he was playing better than Russ and Beal in the first half. Then he was pretty much the only source of offense the Wizards had in the second half. He took smart shots, he created plays, he controlled the place that the Wizards were playing in. Like, he pretty much the tempo he was playing at was the tempo that the Wizards were playing at. Like he looked like the team leader tonight. And then again in the fourth quarter, like Jason Tatum just pretty much like activated takeover. Like he did whatever you wanted in the second half. He just chucked up double team threes, making them like they're nothing. This went for most of the Celtics as well. Like again, Kemba Walker did that. Like he was just shooting at will. It seemed like he wanted to hit a 50 piece as well, like Tatum did. Again, like the defense just completely shut down the Wizards, just completely suffocated them. Coupled that with like Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal just going completely ice cold, not making any shots. Some points Tatum was literally leaving Russ wide open on the three. Like I think yeah. And then the Wizards, like again, like all my fourth quarter comments seem to be the same as the third quarter comments. It basically boiled down to the Celtics just had a good defense. They just went off offensively, right? Like Kemba found his groove. Jason Tatum found his groove. Defensively, they just shut down the Wizards at any opportunity they could. Wizards, on the other hand, didn't have a defense whatsoever. Just allowed Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker to do whatever they wanted to do. Offensively, like Russell Westbrook just wanted to play hero ball, and that clearly didn't work because he just wasn't playing good. Like I really cannot think of anything good to say about the Wizards play today except for Ish Smith. Like going into this game, I don't think anyone thought Ish Smith would be the bright spot on this Wizards team tonight, but he was. Like I genuinely think he was the best player on the Wizards tonight. Like he was better than Westbrook, better than Beal. Like he was pretty much being the facilitator for the Wizards tonight. Defense as well, like they pretty much just gave up on defense. Like there's one play where Tristan Thompson was driving to the hoop and then Westbrook just grabbed his arm when Thompson was driving. Like that's not defense, that's just fouling them, right? Like that's what they had to resort to try to stop any plays, like because the Celtics were just running over them. And it basically just comes down to like this game. Like I predicted at the beginning of the game, or yesterday I think, right? Yeah, I predicted that the Wizards were going to win because they have a better offense and the Celtics have not been playing that good recently. But pretty much this game today just came down to like who could coach better, Scott Brooks or Brad Stevens. And Scott Brooks will never be able to outcoach Brad Stevens. Scott Brooks is a terrible coach. Yeah, like final thoughts. Again, the Celtics are a dangerous team. Like I was sleeping on Jason Tatum a lot, but I do think like now the Celtics are the 7th seed, so they're going to be playing the Nets in a 7-game series. And I do think the Nets-Celtics series is going to be really fun to watch. But personally, I do think that the Nets are still going to advance. I think the Celtics could potentially take a game off the Nets. But again, Nets have, I'm going to say this again and again and again throughout the playoffs. Nets have the big three of KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. That's going to be unstoppable. Celtics may make it hard for them. You know, Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker might play like they did today, you know, just play insane. But at the end of the day, I do think that the Nets are going to get them. Again, Jason Tatum is a stud. I saw some people doubting him for some reason, even today, like saying that he wasn't a leader or anything. Like, that's just not true. He dropped a 50 piece in one of the biggest games of his life. Like, absolutely nothing happened. Like, he just showed up, dropped 50 points, and left. You know, that 23-point performance in that third quarter was insane. He was the sole reason, like, or not the sole reason, you know, but like, if he wasn't playing like that in the third quarter, I do think the Wizards would have had a better chance of winning. Like, you know, maybe Russ could have found his stride again. Beal could have like felt a little more comfortable playing. You know, the Wizards could have probably won if Tatum didn't like just take over in that third quarter. And finally, for this game alone, Scott Brooks, he's just a terrible coach. Like, terrible coach. His team is getting completely cooked, right? Like I said, like his team is literally being like turnstiles to the Celtics offense. And Scott Brooks doesn't call a timeout to like, you know, get their groove back. Scott Brooks doesn't do any of that. He doesn't switch assignments. He refuses to make subs. He refuses to call timeouts or anything to just get the team refreshed, right? He just insists that like whatever he's running is right and that they'll get it eventually or something. I don't really know what went on in Scott Brooks' mind in coaching this game today. Yeah, like he pretty much just sat there and allowed the Wizards to get like absolutely demolished by the Celtics. He didn't really do anything to actually fix like Jason Tatum's Jason Tatum's insane play, Kemba Walker's insane play, like them finding their groove in the in that second half. So now I want to move on to the Wizards versus Pacers game, and this game determines the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. Once again, I just want to start off by saying like, wow, I cannot believe that I went 0-2 in the play-in predictions. But again, those are my opinions, and like, it's just fun to predict. I mean, I went in thinking some of it was going to be wrong, but yeah. But yeah, so the 8th seed game is going to be Wizards versus Pacers. The winner of this game will face the 76ers in a 7-game series. So I just want to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of each team. Like, Pacers, again, like I said, like the one huge strength of the Pacers that they're a great team, like a good unit together. No one offensive player. So like if the Wizards defense, which is non-existent, but if the Wizards defense somehow figures out like one player on the Pacers, it's not the end of the world because they have 4 other people who are performing as well offensively as they were. Another strength like specific to the Pacers versus Wizards matchup, Sabonis got 21 rebounds in the game tonight. I imagine like he's going to be very aggressive in driving or getting boards, so that'll help the team out. Like, this is a Wizards specific thing considering how they were treating rebounding against the Celtics. But a weakness is, this is the whole like team cohesive unit thing is their weakness as well. If Beal's hamstring improves, if Westbrook finds his stride, if role players like Ish Smith perform like they did tonight, the Pacers just might not be able to keep up. Like, you can, when you have like a team like that, you also don't have like a stud defender or anything like that. You have to rely on everyone being able to work together. If you're having like Russell Westbrook cooking whoever's on Russell Westbrook, right? Russell Westbrook cooking whoever's guarding him, and then Bradley Beal cooking whoever's on him, like that affects the confidence and the morale of the team. On top of that, like the team itself is kind of in shambles. There's like some weird locker room drama going on with Nate Bjorken and the whole team, and then like I think there are reports coming out about how Nate Bjorken lost the locker room, and that's originally why I said that the Pacers weren't going to move on. And also like, the Pacers had like a very dominant performance today, but again, that is the that is against the Hornets. Their best player, in my opinion, is LaMelo Ball, sorry. The Wizards have Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, who are both all-stars this year. Like, you're going against all-star talent compared to like rookie of the year talent, right? And then a bunch of like not really all-star talent, I guess. That it's like they're just going against a harder team, so this whole like all-in cohesive unit method might not work against the Wizards solely because they just have better talent. But on the Wizards, there's also like a huge strengths and huge weaknesses which are very apparent today. Their strengths are like pretty obviously. Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal can still be an elite duo and a frightening force on opposing defenses. Like, we saw what Russell Westbrook is capable of. We saw what Bradley Beal is capable of, right? Like, Russell Westbrook is Russell Westbrook, getting triple-doubles night in, night out. He's still capable of that. He broke the record this year. Bradley Beal is Bradley Beal, like, I think 0.5 points away from getting the scoring title in the league this year, He got beat out by Stephen Curry, which, so in any other year, or in a Stephen Curry-less world, Bradley Beal would have easily gotten the scoring title this year. So considering that Bradley Beal's hamstring improves, which I do think it will, like today, you could tell today that like the hamstring issue was clearly knocking him. But if his hamstring issue improves, which I think it will, because he was like he was watching how much he played and everything today, like he was pretty much doing self-load management, I guess. If like Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal return to the level they were at this season, in the regular season, realize the implications of losing this game. They're out of the season if they lose this game. I do think they can overcome the Pacers, like I was talking earlier. However, their downfall again is Scott Brooks. His disastrous coaching did not help the Wizards one bit. Like, maybe if they had a smart coach, maybe if Scott Brooks was running proper rotations to not get like cooked by the Wizards, maybe they could have like stopped the skid earlier. He didn't call timeouts when the team was skidding. He didn't switch up rotations and assignments when the team was clearly getting burned by Boston, and the Wizards' defense in general was terrible. Yeah, and like for this game, there are two very clear ways for the Pacers and the Wizards to win. So for the Pacers, like just continue playing team ball. Don't let like your individual performance affect the rest of the team, right? Like I said, like getting cooked by Russell Westbrook, getting cooked by Bradley Beal can affect your confidence, can make you probably play worse. For the Pacers to win, they cannot let that happen whatsoever. For the Wizards to win again, it's like not only is it going to be important for Westbrook and Beal to find their form, but also they need to run solid actual defensive sets, which pretty much just all lies in Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks' coaching, and from what I've seen of the Wizards this year, and from what I've seen of just the Wizards defense this year, that could be a very, very bad thing to rely on for the Wizards, because they haven't really been that good on defense this year, in my opinion. But however, although this is like a pretty big liability for the Wizards, and although the Wizards, all these holes that I've been talking about for the Wizards were like shown in full force today by the Celtics, I personally do think that the Wizards are going to win today, or not today, but whenever they play the Pacers and go on to the 8th seed. Of course, once they get to the 8th seed, they're probably going to get cooked by the 76ers, right? But honestly, I do think the Wizards are going to play, because even if the Wizards play at the level that they did today, which I doubt will happen, by the way, because Bradley Beal is bound to get healthier, just because, he was watching how much he was playing. He was being cautious in how he played tonight. The Pacers, again, can very likely get cooked by a player like Ish Smith, or like some random role player. Like Rui Hachimura is still a good player. Ish Smith is a good player. I think Davis Bertans is a good player. He can have his nights, I think. If the Pacers like double team both Beal and Russ, the Wizards are gonna have another option. Like maybe it won't be as reliable as Russ or Beal can be. Like Ish Smith. I never saw Ish Smith play like this in my whole life or whole time watching basketball. But if Ish Smith somehow plays like he did tonight, the Pacers might not have an answer for that. Or just some random bench player going off for the Wizards. Like maybe you can have Daniel Gafford, who I want to see succeed, by the way. One of my favorite rising stars on the Bulls before the trade deadline. You can have all types of stuff happen. Like this is why I like the play-in tournament is like very divisive, but I actually enjoy the play-in tournament because it reminds me of March Madness. Like any given game, anything can happen. It's not going to be like a 7-game series where like you start to adjust your the way you play based on the team you're going against and the more experience you have playing them, because 7-game series, you're only playing them and no one else. But yeah, I mean, any given game, I'm hoping that the Wizards find their groove again, because like they're a decent team, Like I do personally think they can beat the Pacers, because again, the Pacers aren't too great. I do think they're like the 7th seed, so it's gonna be the 7th seed versus the 9 or 8 seed. Wow, I forgot. But you know what? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I do think the Pacers' method of team ball is just going to get overrun by just the individual talents of Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, or if they have answers to Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, then they'll just get like cooked by some bench player like Daniel Gafford, or maybe even Davis Bertans, Ish Smith, someone like that. So for that, I do think the Wizards are going to win the play-in game and advance to the 8th seed, and yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty long video, just me, like, talking a lot about the games today, but I hope you enjoyed. This is something different. I'm going to, like, go back to my normal style of videos where I just see something on Twitter and start talking about it. But, yeah, I'm probably going to do this tomorrow, too, with the Lakers, Warriors, and Spurs, Grizzlies games. And, yeah, I'll see you. Thanks.